So welcome, 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 everyone. We're so excited that you are all here. And today we're going to talk about something very different. We don't have a different speaker today. You get our team. So our team's going to participate. And we want to talk to you and let you know about how you can become a passive 1031 investor. Most everyone knows what 1031 is. And for those who do not know, 1031 is an IRS IRC, which is IRA code. What does that stand for? Oh, Internal Revenue Code 1031. And what that is when you own a piece of real estate that you're holding as an investment and you want to turn that investment into a larger investment, or you want to get out altogether, you do something called a 1031 exchange. And what you are exchanging is the equity and the loan, if there is one, into another piece of property. So what it says is like kind, and people get very confused about like kind. Like kind is like kind, real estate for real estate. And it actually doesn't even have to have a building on it. You could buy an empty piece of land. It's all about the intent of buying an investment, or exchanging, in this case, an investment. I have this book on 1031 exchange, and you will notice it's hundreds of pages. So it might look like 1031, might sound like a really simple thing, but it's not that it's that complicated. It's just that it takes a lot to get it worked out. You have to figure out what your basis, which is what you paid for the property when you went in. You need to know what your loan is, if you have a loan. And so we're going to go into, I'm just going to cover the basics of 1031. And then we're going to talk about, if you do know someone that's interested, and what we are finding is a lot of people that are, we'll just say, closer to my age, would prefer no longer to own income property, because for some reason their children have no interest in it, or they're just tired of it, or for whatever reason they would like to get out, but they don't want to pay taxes. We have a way to support them in that transfer of whatever the equity is. So let's just say you buy a piece of property. Let's just say you buy a 10-unit apartment building when you're young, and you put your down payment, you're 20% down, and you get your loan. And 10 years later, you decide that you've got enough equity in it because of whatever the market did. You now have, I'm going to make up numbers. None of them are true, but I have to work my math. So you have, you paid, we'll say $100,000 for it. And now you're going to pay $1 million for the next piece of property. You have to look at what your basis was. You paid $100,000, that's your basis. You put a loan on it, so you had an $80,000 loan, but what is the balance now 10 years later? Let's just say it's now a $50,000 loan because you paid principal down. So now you have to buy a piece of property, exchange into a piece of property that is at least $100,000 or whatever you're selling it for. So let's say the property is doubled in price, so it's now worth $200,000. So you have to buy a piece of property that's at least $200,001, and you have to put a loan on it that's at least $50,001. Do you all understand what I've said so far? I see a couple heads going up and down, and some heads not doing anything. Okay. So we will have a Q&A. Write your questions down. Okay, so you just made this exchange, and you now got into this $1 million property, and you had to go get a new loan, right? Because you had the $200,000 for the down payment, and you need to get a new $800,000 loan. Let's say you hold that for 30 years, and you now have that loan now it's only a $200,000 loan, or you get it paid off. So we're going to start with a $200,000 loan. So you have a $200,000 loan. You've got a property that's now worth, it was $1 million. That's what you paid for it. It's worth $2 million. To exchange into something, again, same rules, has to be worth more. You have to pay more than what you're selling it for, and your loan has to be higher. But you're sick and tired of being a landlord anymore. You don't want to do it. Your children have no interest. So what do? Do you sell that property and pay the income taxes on it, because you have to recover all your depreciation, and you've been depreciating for over 30 years. That means whatever you depreciated, let's say you could depreciate everything but the land. And let's say the land was worth $200,000 on your $1 million property. So that means you have $80,000 of depreciation. You have to reclaim that. Oh my God, the taxes hurt. So we have people that are very interested in having you become a passive partner with them so that you don't have to pay any taxes. And you could do something called a 1031 exchange, and you could become a tenant in common and become passive. So I've been reading the 1031 book about being a passive investor. And as long as the intent is to be a tenant in common in a 1031 for income property, it's very acceptable. And there's a lot of things that go along with it. So, but I just want to get through this part. I want to know what questions you have, because I don't know, I have a lot in my head I already know about. So I sometimes don't say everything that needs to be said. And I want to make sure that you understand what we've talked about so far.
I have a question.
Good.
Great news that you're sharing. Thanks for sharing those. And the tenants in common doesn't mean the person, the passive investor, will go on it on title.
They have to go on title exactly how they came in. So how that works is, let's just say I have something in my name, Peggy Beauregard. When I exchange into the next property, I have to be on title exactly how I came out of. So if I had it in my name, or if I had it in my trust name, or if I had an LLC, whatever I go into, and let's say I'm going with you, Fernando. And you have your Fernando LLC, but I'm the 1031 person. So I'm going to come in and it's going to say Fernando's LLC and Peggy Beauregard, or Peggy's Trust, or whatever, however title was. So, and I'm a fractional partner. So you are the one, you're the syndicator. Let's say you have a $10 million property and you're going to take this $2 million in because they decided they're just going to go with you. I own a fraction of that property. And it has to be, you have to tell me how much for tax purposes. Oh, here comes Dan. For tax purposes, I need to know what my fractional holding is. So in this case, it makes it really simple, right? You have a $10 million property. I put $2 million in. I'm a 20% fractional owner. Now we have taxes when the tax time comes around. So you, as the syndicator, Fernando, you're going to do a K1 to all your partners that you brought in, that brought in the other $8 million, right? Or whatever you put in you're also a Class A Class A and a Class B. So you put out the K1s to everyone, but not to the TIC, not to your tenant in common person. Yeah, how about that? Because I'm an owner of the property. I am not a partner I am not one of your partners. I'm not in the LLC. If I come into the LLC, I'm now disqualified. I'm no longer a 1031. I don't get those advantages, and I owe all the taxes. So I have to be a partner on title, and I have to file my taxes separately. And the taxes, the information that I need you to give me is I need to report on a Schedule E. You need to send the information to me of all the income and all the expenses and my fractional interest. I need income and expenses and all the depreciation. So when you closed, you did what's called a cost segregation. That cost segregation, for all of those who do not know what a cost segregation is, a cost segregation is as these specialists come out and let's just say we bought an office building, okay? So that office building, it has a parking lot, it has stripes. The parking lot lasts just so long, the stripes last just so long. So there's a depreciation schedule for the stripes for the parking lot. There's an entryway. There's an entryway when you walk into the building, and there's a receptionist, a reception area. That reception area that all the desk or whatever are there lasts just so long. So that has a depreciation schedule. They have carpeting. The carpeting lasts just so long. The carpeting in the hall lasts so long. The elevator lasts so long. Everything has a separate depreciation schedule. The building itself has a 27 and a half year depreciation schedule, but the roof has something different. The air conditioner has something different. So you see, it's a little complicated, but you want a cost segregation person to come in, because if you take it's called a straight depreciation in 27 and a half years, you're losing out on being able to get a lot of tax write-offs. Does anyone have a question about the cost segregation? Okay. I bet you're
how
all
often,
straight face, so I'm betting you don't know.
How often do you do a cost segregation?
When you purchase a property,
So
once.
just once.
Yeah, because they're doing everything. They're doing the roof, the parking lot, the air conditioner, the carpeting. They're doing everything that's in the building.
Typically also in your first 3 years.
What is?
Cost segregation is typically done in the first 3 years.
Most everybody we know that does it right after closing, because they want those write-offs the first year. They get to write off, quite a bit to take care of all those costs. Remember, when you're paying, Cliff knows a lot more about this than I do, but when you're paying your interest on your loan, you're really paying way much more. So you want to be able to write all that off against the depreciation.
On a 30-year note, your first 7 years you're paying on that. About 70% of that is going into interest each year. A lot of people don't realize that. So it takes a long time to really build equity if you're taking the traditional route of paying down an amortized scheduled loan. It's based on the rule of 78.
Right. Okay. So
are you able to cost segregate if you have a building and you do major renovation or modifications to the building that are newer than the building itself?
Yeah. Did you ever do a cost segregation before?
Never did a cost segregation and have had the properties longer than, 10, 15 years. But in that case, if you do some major upgrades or you add to the property, add ADU or any of that kind of stuff, does that allow you to cost segregate at that point?
I don't know why not, but you'd have to ask a cost segregation specialist. They know much more about it. And yes, they can go in years later and do some recapture, but they can't do all of it because of how long it's been.
Thank you.
Oh, I was thinking about you the other day. I can't remember what it was, so let me think about that. It's an article I read. I'll get you a copy of that article. Had to do with land. Okay, so that's what you need. So no K1. You're a tenant in common. They call it TIC. So you can remember that really easily. TIC. No, I don't want to use that animal. It's a fractional interest, tenant in common. And the other thing is So I'm going to use another example. We'll use the same numbers, but you don't have a loan. So you want to go into another, you want to work passively. So what you have to look at is, do you want to take on another loan? Because if you go in as a tick and there's a loan on the property, you are going to be responsible for whatever your position is. So we'll use the same numbers. And now it's a 20% position. And Fernando's LLC is taking on that $800,000 note. I have to take 20% of that. I am liable separately as a tenant in common. And I have to take that liability on if something is to happen to the property where it closes down or something happens. I'm responsible to the bank for that 20% of 800,000. So that's something that really has to be thought about. And we have had people who have had free and clear properties that they sold and did go in and sign. They felt it was worth doing that. And for me is now, let's say in 5 years, that property's going to sell and you can separately do a 1031. Now you have that loan. You have to deal with that again. So now you have to make sure that you buy a property where you're putting a loan that's higher on than what you're selling. So you have to go through that process again. Whereas if you can find someone, which isn't always easy, it is for us, but not for most people, to find someone that pays all cash for a property. So people who pay all cash, that's ideal for a 1031 person who has no loan. And another thing that also could be done, and this could be done in two different ways. Let's say you have a small loan and you're going to do a 1031 and you don't want to go into a deal that has a loan. You could pay that loan off before you sell the property. Ideally, that's what you would do if you had that extra money. But, do you have 200,000 sitting around waiting to be used to pay off a loan? So the other thing that you could do, and this is always with your CPA, always talk to your CPA about all of this because they know you inside and out. They've been working for you and with you for years. You could go into your 1031 and say, look, I only owe a couple $100,000 on this $2 million property. I'll just take the tax hit. I'll go into a property that doesn't have a loan, and I will take the tax consequence of that $200,000 boot. It's called boot. I was going to look that up before we started and I forgot to look it up.
I just put it in the chat log.
What is it? How did it get called boot?
I'm not sure why it actually is termed boot, but in the example you were just describing, if I understood that correctly, someone wants to go in, they want to be able to not carry debt into it. So the amount of debt that they have on that, they may take out as boot and only move that 1031 exchange profit into that 1031 exchange, and the boot would actually be taxable based on the current fair market value.
I'm just wondering if they thought you had all that cash and you put it in your boots.
I don't know. Interesting way to think about it.
I don't know. It's always been called. As soon as you learn boot is cash and you have to pay taxes on it, you don't really think about it again. But I never did look up why it's called boot. But that's what it's called. David?
It's called the boot because you get the boot.
Because you get the boot from what, the IRS?
Yeah, they're kicking you. Yeah.
Oh, the IRS gives you the boot. Yes, they do.
Another good way to remember that.
I never heard that before, David. Thanks. That's really great. Anyway, that's the basics of it. Nika, you have something to say about this?
No, I just think it's fabulous. I'm glad that I'm just so excited that I learned this from you. And I tell everyone, I'm like, hey, If you need to do a 1031 exchange, then talk to us, because it's a lot nicer that you don't have to be a landlord, that's for sure.
Yes, and I, one of the things I was looking at when I was reading this book is because they're talking about passive and how are you involved? And I saw an email today is how am I involved in this? And in actuality, you don't ever have to do anything. You hire a manager. Well, Fernando's my manager. I don't have to worry about my activity on the property because I'm holding it for the rental income, which is what the intent is out of 1031. You're still holding it as an investment. So Fernando's going to do all the property management, or he's going to oversee. He's the asset manager. He's going to oversee the manager. And you're always going to have a manager on a property no matter what. I mean, they say self-storage, you don't need a property manager because they can do everything online and drive up and put their credit card in and go over to whatever room and hit whatever, and the door goes up so they could look at it. But you still need to have a manager. Stuff happens. So you always have to have a manager in place, because the problem is you never know what the stuff is that's going to happen. And you need somebody that can get to the site within a short period of time. So you're always going to see property management. And then the other is when you're going into something, is that going to be like a triple net, or is that going to be a single net? And then you, Fernando, you're responsible for the roof, you're responsible for the air conditioner, you're responsible for the taxes, the insurance, pretty much that. Or are you more in a triple net where the tenant's responsible for all those things? And an absolute triple net is they are absolutely responsible for all of that. They pay every single thing. You are so extremely passive that all you collect are checks. And if you have them ACH that, you don't even have to collect the check. It just shows up in your account. That's how we like it. So
I do have a question though.
Please.
Whenever we get to the questions, if we haven't gotten
we're there. I like
Okay.
everybody to have a question and to ask. Hi, Dan. Thanks for showing up.
So I guess my first question is, because if you're more in the ownership, what is your liability? I mean, I'm assuming they also would put you on the insurance, and how's your liability?
Well, you don't have a loan, so there's not the liability there, but you are, in this case, a 20% owner. But the insurance is, you would be named on the insurance policy. So that's how you're covered. So you don't have to carry a separate insurance policy. You'd be named on the policy. Because you're going in as a partner, you're a tenant in common partner. And I will double check on that. That was a really good question.
If for whatever reason the property got sued, are you part of that, or how are you protected?
You're not.
And can you put your partial in a trust then to protect you? I'm all about these trusts now. Because
Let's say you have a really good advisor and you actually went in an LLC when you originally bought the property. You could change the name anytime while you owned a property. So you could, while you're owning a property, if you put it in your name and now you want to put it in your trust, or you want to create an LLC, is a better thing to actually do inheritance wise. And you don't have to worry about it ever going through that. But anyway, I forgot what I was saying.
the trust, but you can put the name in the trust, but can you put
Yeah,
partial?
so you bought it in your name and now you want to put it in your LLC. Put it in your LLC. You just grant deed it to the LLC, and you fill out all the documents for the county to show that there was not a change in ownership, just a change in name. You have to show them there was no change in ownership in order to keep your property taxes at that, whatever it is. Yes, Dan.
Yeah, it's if you remember Edmund Chen, everybody was doting over him the other day, and I've been friends with him for over a year now. But you were mentioning about how you like the distributions or whatever you want to call them showing up via ACH. Edmund told me that he makes a point for new clients to send checks, even if they ask specifically for ACH, because he wants them to actually go through that action of receiving the check so that they know, hey, this one's working out. This one's from Edmund or whoever he's working with. And so he was saying, like, as a strategic approach, putting people through the hassle of actually having a physical check, it at least serves a purpose in that situation. I'd be interested in hearing what if you think otherwise, but I thought it's a neat story.
So what he's saying for what?
He's saying so if you invest in, let's say it's a fund, so if he had a fund and he was running one right now, he would encourage people to send checks for the first few distributions at least, and then ACH after that, because he sees the value in the investor receiving that distribution check and then mentally checking off in the back of their head, yes, I did receive this from this fund, and rather than it'll just disappear in a statement if it's ACH'd in.
Right, understood. Yeah, so he's going for that mental, like, oh, I have a successful deal here. Look, I got a check. And yes, we have people that say, how do I know this deal is working? Well, did you check your account to see if the money came in? No. Well, but if they got the check, they would say, yes, I got the check. So yeah, that's a great idea.
He's full of those.
Great ideas.
Unless it gets mailed to an old address.
Yeah. Well, there's always that. I like the ACH, frankly.
Right. That's how I'd feel as well, but of course, I'm a computer guy as well. So
yeah,
I use the automated kiosks because I don't want to say, it's like, sorry, my daughter doesn't like pickles. I'd rather just go beep, boop, boop, done.
Exactly. And I like to travel. I don't like to have to worry about getting to the bank, going to find that envelope and going to the bank.
Yeah, just set up the notifications. So whenever it comes to your bank account, you get it. You're like, ding. Oh,
there you go. Yeah,
yep. Danny, do you have any questions? Nothing?
No, but I've learned a lot in the last 34 minutes. I've been Googling on the side several of the things that you've been discussing. So if anything, I'm just more in absorption mode.
That's great. Cindy, what about you?
A lot new things to me, so learning.
Okay, that's great. Tony Riggs, you're learning a lot about real estate. You have any questions?
No, it's I've heard about cost egg and 1031s. I'm interested in learning more about that, but our fund is a great place to go to 1031s if you want to get out of 1031s. But yeah, I like learning. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Marcia just had her hand up also.
Okay, good. Marcia.
Well, I just want to make a comment or a question. I know you just kind of briefly highlighted on a 1031 exchange. I know there's a time frame you have to, if you have a property that you want to exchange into a 1031, there is a time frame you have to do that. Do we need to get with our tax account to make sure we're inside that window? Are you going to explain that, or will you have someone maybe in the real estate to kind of explain that in more detail about a 1031 exchange?
I'd be happy to talk about the timeline because the timeline is critical. The timeline on a 1031 for the identification is from the day you close. You have 45 days to identify another property. You get to pick 3 properties and you must close on one of them. We recommend, if you're thinking about doing a 1031, that you start looking about 2 years ahead, because it can take that long before you find a good deal. We see all the time from the accommodators, people that are desperately looking that they have to close and they haven't found anything they like. And when you're in a market like we are right now, that's so high, you better be looking now before you ever go into a 1031. So you have 45 days to identify, and you have to give all that to your trustee or accommodator, whomever you choose. They will report that after the 45th day to the IRS, which means you cannot make a change unless you've got somebody that doesn't make that report right away. And you must close within, from the day of closing of your escrow to the closing of the next escrow, is 180 days, which is not 6 months. When somebody says you've got 6 months to close, that's not true. Some months have 28 days, some months have 31 days, some months have 30 days. So you have to count every single day, and Sunday is counted as a day. It would be great if they didn't count Sunday, but there are some who practice Saturdays and some who practice Sundays. So it'd be nice to not include any weekends, but every single day is included.
And I would just tack on to that and say, never do a bad deal just because you're almost at the end of your 45 days. Take the tax hit, pay for your intermediary, your qualified intermediary, and just walk away from that, and don't ever do a bad deal just to say you did a 1031 exchange.
Yeah, have a really good, so if you're working with an agent, real estate agent, first of all, you always go to your CPA or your tax attorney, whoever, and have them discuss with them about what you want to do, why you want to do it, and have them look at your numbers where you are so they can tell you more about which way to go. About the numbers, not about your real estate. They don't know about the real estate, but they know about the numbers. And then you decide. A lot of people stick with multifamily because that's all they know, but there's so many different things you could do with different kinds of real estate. And most people have the misconception that if they had a single family, they have to buy another single family. No, IRS like kind means real estate for real estate. It means you can't exchange your real estate for gems or cars or RVs. It must be real estate. You want to do gems for gems, I think that's a 1035. IRS has a code for everything. You'll be covered, trust me.
What about Pokemon cards?
Yep.
That's a joke.
Pokemon cards, probably with Pokemon cards.
Yeah, right.
Put that in your Roth account.
There you go.
Right. So
I hate appreciation moves. Anything that's just straight appreciation, yeah, no thanks. Buy low, sell high only gets you so far.
That's true. That's why a lot of people who do their 1031s like to take what they have and go into a property that they could turn around and fix up and make a nicer property out of it. Mm. And it takes a while till you can find a property like that. I listen to multifamily people and they say that they're closing on a cash on cash of somewhere between 3 and 4%. Mm. That's stupid money, and you will be in so much trouble because interest rates are now up at 5% on commercial, and you're giving a 4% return to your customers, your partners. Yeah. I don't know. My math says that doesn't work.
Yeah. I was talking to a mortgage broker today. He was saying that there's mumbles of 7% by the end of the year.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I've actually heard we might see double-digit interest rates on mortgages by the end of the year for people that don't have stellar credit.
Right.
Oh, well, I love all the rumors. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons those rumors go out like that is to stimulate the market so people will buy now in an overpriced market. So people will look at and they'll pay 1.2 mil for a $800,000 or $900,000 house because people outbid each other. And the interest rates are low, so they could afford to do that. Because when the interest rates are at 8, 9, 10%, you can't afford that 1.2 mil. You could afford the 800 maybe.
Yeah, especially with inflation. You know, at least it's matching inflation if you're doing like 8% and 8%, but like, oh, yuck.
Yuck. Well, when we bought our first house, the interest rates were at 21%.
Yeah, yeah. I was about to say, yeah.
There's people that have been born that have no idea that that number was out there. And when we bought the house I'm in now, it was a 9% interest rate. But we got a good deal on the house because we were in a down cycle and we bought a foreclosed home.
Yeah.
Right. So that was easy. And then when the rates came down, we refinanced into a lower rate.
Yep.
And the market keeps changing. So that the one thing you can always be assured of is the market keeps changing. Might go up, might go down. Who knows? I've never seen anything stick. It's like, how come everything keeps changing? It doesn't, that's just the way it is.
Lots of humans involved.
Yeah. In Congress and a few other people and stock market, etc. So any other questions about 1030? Did I answer your question, Marcia?
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Hey, Peggy, this is Tina. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, a couple of things. On a 1031, if you have an existing property, another existing property, you're saying you have to be on the title the same way as the prior property. So say you have two properties, you sell one. Can you roll that money into the other property?
No.
Peggy, wouldn't each one of those go in as a tick into the new property?
No, the property that you go into has to be a 1031 property. Oh, minor detail. You cannot buy an existing property that's not in escrow. It has to be a 1030, it has to qualify for 1031. So we have somebody right now that's looking at a 1031 going into a property, and the sponsor said we'll have to go back to the owner. Yes, they have to go back to the owner and they have to say to the owner, look, we have somebody coming in as a 1031. We need to change the property to a 1031 property. It has to qualify for 1031. You can't have an existing property that's already closed.
I think Tina was wondering if she had two different properties that were each titled differently, how would that go to a common new property under 1031 exchange? And it would be my understanding that each
ticks
have to go in as a tick, and they would have to go in the same name as they were in the previous property or 1031 from and going into as a tick.
And also, could you take, this is only capital gains, right, on the property that you need to be concerned about, not the so-called value of the property that you sold.
Nope.
So whatever your gain was.
You have to be concerned about every single factor.
Oh.
So you bought a house, I think you missed this part. So you bought a house, we'll just say it's a single family, you paid $100,000 for it, it's now worth $200,000. You have a loan on it for $80,000, and now it's worth, let's say your loan is now down to $50,000. You have to take in mind that the value is now you've got somebody that's paying $200,000 for it. You have to buy something that's at least $201,000, and you have to have a loan that's at least whatever the existing loan is on your property. So if it's $50,000, you have to pay at least $50,001. I mean, you have to borrow $50,001.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You have to be concerned. So if you already own a property, you own two properties in two different names.
Yeah, I'll be.
And you want to consolidate into exchanging into another property, I would suggest you retitle one or the other property, or if you want to get them both into an LLC because you're all the same partnership, you could set up an LLC and put each of the properties in that LLC, and then you could do a 1031 exchange with both of those properties. at the same time into another property.
Could you 1031 into multiple properties in a portfolio title decision?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
But you have to watch about if you have debt on the property. The debt does not have to go into, let's say you choose to do two different properties. The debt doesn't have to go into both properties, but the debt has to be larger, at least on one of the properties, to qualify. Otherwise, you have boot and you will owe taxes on that.
Okay.
And we have people that are willing to pay the taxes on the boot because they don't want to be in a loan and they
I
didn't
have a
have
client
enough.
right now that is willing to do it. He's like, why would I actually do a 1031 exchange on something and just defer the taxes I'm going to pay when I have the money where I can pay it today? So he's in a position in cash to where he can pay the taxes on the sale of the property where he doesn't really have to do a 1031 exchange.
Right, but we're talking about having people like Tina who doesn't want to be, she wants to be passive now and exchanging her into, so she doesn't have to be concerned about how the property's running or being a good manager, because there's a lot of people that are managers on properties that are not particularly good managers. I will speak for that for myself. I'm not a good manager. I'm a pushover. And
Really hard to believe.
I know it is hard to believe, but I am, and it makes a property not really profitable when you're not a good manager.
I feel like
I can help you with that.
Which is one of the reasons people do 1031s, because they want to get out of that management and then they really want to go passive. And it's only since we started this business and we've run into all the different sponsors that we're working with, and we ask them, will you do 1031? Will you do 1031? And they're like, yeah, we'll take 1031 money any day of the week.
Yeah.
So
I've seen that with a lot of syndications where they announce that as an opportunity. Also, what if, and this is probably completely off track, but if you had a property as opposed to 1031ing it, could you take that and throw it into an opportunity zone and not have to pay taxes on that?
Yes.
Yeah, opportunity zones, the time frame for that is depreciating. So being able to get out of it 100% tax-free may not still be an option in some cases, but yeah, it can greatly reduce your tax burden.
Tony can answer that question.
I'm doing that actually right now.
Not Dave. Sorry, Tony. There's two Tonys.
Okay.
Tony,
Okay.
can you answer that question about the opportunity zone? What does it go down to? Because I've been wondering that. It doesn't go down to zero. What can you get it down to?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the question partially.
If you put a 1031 exchange into an opportunity zone, what can you get it down to? Like, it can't go down to zero.
Well, it's an investment into the opportunity zone. So your investment, I'm not 100% sure on that. I have to ask my team on
it's
that.
zero.
Next to that, but
Right now, if you take a 1031 and you go into an opportunity zone,
It depends.
you have to pay all your taxes on it. That discount that used to be there was a 50% or 60%. Dropped to 75%, then it dropped to 85%. And now my understanding is it's gone away completely. So you owe all your taxes on a 1031.
I'm texting here with my
You
team.
still have to pay all the taxes and you still could go into an opportunity zone. The advantage is that in 10 years, when the property sells again, you owe no capital gain on what's sold, but you still had to pay all the taxes on your gain on your 1031.
Yeah, on the investment amount is deferred till 2026, but on growth, it would be capital gains tax-free, federal capital gains tax-free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we have to look at that. So we do know people that actually are taking their gain out of their 1031 and going into opportunity zone and paying the taxes on the rest of it.
Definitely, when you're doing this, you want to check with a CPA that is very knowledgeable in these best practices for real estate. They'll just take our word for what we're saying. We're telling you what we have experience in, but things change. So you definitely want to consult with your own CPA that's very knowledgeable in real estate.
Yeah, and you should start that conversation long before you decide that you want to do a 1031. Once you say, gee, I'm thinking about doing a 1031, I'm thinking of selling this property, that's the day to set that appointment with your CPA, because he knows your numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
And start talking about who you want to invest with, because that takes sometimes too in coordination to get the timing.
I'm sorry, somebody else is speaking.
Yeah, there's a lot of background noise, I think, coming from Cindy's microphone.
From who?
I think there's a lot of background noise coming from Cindy's microphone.
From me?
I think so. It keeps on lighting up for you. There it goes. Thank you.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out who it was.
That's why you're co-host.
I'm not a co-host this week.
Yeah, I'm co-host, but I'm sorry, I was trying to see who it was to mute and I couldn't figure out who it was. Thank you.
Yeah, so say what you said again, Nika, please.
What did I say? I said, and that's also the same day that you that you call your CPA, that you also start to have the conversation of who you're going to invest with, because you can't sell and then go, oh, let me go talk about which one I'm going to invest with. You want to identify, have that conversation and see which people that we can get that coordinates the timing for you.
Oh yeah, that's always an important part. And here's something else that most people don't know. There's something called a simultaneous closing. That means that you close the same day you close on the property you're selling, you're also closing on the property you're going into. That simultaneous, and so that means you really want to use the same escrow or attorney, whatever state you're in, so that you could close everything all together. If you can't do it with the same escrow company, you can, with the other escrow company, all funds, every dime, nickel, penny, get transferred from the escrow company you're closing from to the other escrow company. It goes overnight and the next day you get funded. That's still considered a simultaneous closing, and simultaneous closings don't get audited by the IRS because all the funds went straight across. People don't realize how often IRS audits the when you're using a accommodator, because they're looking for all those little things that didn't quite go the way.
Seems like a miracle to make that happen. Simultaneous closing.
Yeah,
Always
it's not
closing tomorrow, and then like this, and it get pushed back. It seems, yeah.
It's just not. It's not simple. I mean, when you say, "Yeah, I want to go in as a passive investor with someone," there's work on their part that they need to do. Particularly if there's a loan, they have to. You have to tell them early enough, because they have to go back to the bank where they've already been approved and say, look, we're bringing in this TIC, and this TIC is going to be responsible and has to sign on that loan for a certain percentage of the loan. And that takes time. So they've got to know that pretty early on that you're coming in as a TIC and get all that paperwork done. Anything else, you guys?
I might have missed this one too. One more question. So if you choose not to do a 1031, you pay capital gains. You pay just capital gains tax.
You recover all your depreciation too. So you'll be paying taxes on that.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, it's right.
Yeah.
If you happen to have lived in it for 2 out of the last 5 years and you sell it and it became an investment property, then you may not be subject to taxes on it. I think that they allow up to $250,000, but again, check with a CPA.
500 if you're married. Yeah. Yeah, and we actually know somebody that did live in their property for 2 of the last 5 years, but because the capital gains are so high, because he's not married, he only could take 250, and he's got probably another 250 or whatever on top that he would have to owe. He decided that he would do a 1031 instead. So that's why you want to talk to your accountant. You've got to look at everything. Just never know. Now, like my house, if I were to sell my house, I would owe a huge amount to the government. So would it be better for me to turn, if I decide I want to do something, turn this into a 1031 and start renting it out? So that means I have to move out, rent it out. And then in a year, I could do a 1031 on it to avoid the taxes. Or do I just want to make a really nice donation to the government?
Don't we all?
It'd be okay if I could write it off.
Right.
But they haven't worked that one out for us yet. If you could just write off your taxes. You got to have humor around everything, you know. So does anyone have any other questions or comments or any of that?
So when you do a 1031 exchange, can you do, does the property have to be in the same state, or can you have property in California and Georgia and do the exchange?
It is a federal law. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Any state covered under federal law.
Which it also includes, doesn't that also include like Puerto Rico?
I'm not 100% certain, but I believe it would.
Well, we have people that are going to Puerto Rico and doing opportunity zones. So my guess is that they file federally their taxes here.
So Puerto Rico is part of the United States, but we couldn't do it, say, like in Mexico, because that's a foreign country.
No, you can't do foreign countries. We did check that out. Can't do foreign countries. But if they're taxed for this country. So, but check with your accountant first, they'll know.
Actually, Puerto Rico, from what I understand, because I know some people that have been investing recently are providing some serious tax benefits for investing in Puerto Rico right now.
Right.
And you're still an American, it's classified as American, but because just the area, it's kind of like an opportunity zone. I think they're giving the benefits. I mean, I don't classify as that, but they're giving
99% of Puerto Rico's opportunity zone, Nika.
Right.
Well, how much of it?
But I think that they're
99%.
I think it's not, but if you're investing there, they're still giving you tax credits, not necessarily making it that you have to do it as an opportunity zone investment.
Well, I believe opportunity zone is available there.
It is. 99% of the island is.
99% of the island's an opportunity zone. Oh my God, how sad.
The capital gains in Puerto Rico are only
I don't think they're
10%.
requiring that you do it as an opportunity zone, that they're giving you other tax benefits just even for investment. Because there's a whole thing around opportunity zones that you have to match what you do, and it's not easy to do an opportunity.
Improvements if you're buying existing, right?
Yeah.
But for ground up, it's much easier.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the tax credits are coming from the cities themselves, not from the United States. The opportunity zone is a U.S. Qualified, and the tax grants that are available are from the counties or cities themselves, isn't that?
Well, it's the 2017 tax law that was passed, so it's a tax
The
law.
grants?
For opportunity zones, it's
Right.
passed in 2017 under the Jobs Act as a tax benefit. So it's actually just a tax law, not really a government program.
But we understand that there are also grants available.
Great idea.
And I thought that was by the cities or the counties,
I
not.
think there's legislation in for grants right now out of the Opportunity Zone program, but I don't think that's passed just yet.
Okay. Well, that has to be checked into deeper.
This is David. I do have another question. Sorry, I'm finally here. I was eating lunch, so apologize. But I do have a question in reference to maybe some of the upcoming laws or new laws of investing, foreign investors looking to invest in the States, and some sort of income from that, and it goes back out. So you coming in to invest and then the money going back out. Just curious if any new law changes.
So say that again.
So a foreign buyer looking to come in to invest here in the US. What are the tax challenges with that? And then if it's going to be income property, the income is going to go back out of the country. So I'm just curious on the tax.
Yeah,
on
they
that.
can do that. If they live here, they have to pay taxes on it. I think even if they're in a foreign country, they have to pay taxes on it because it's earned here in America. And you know, the US wants their money, but your CPA would be able to answer that better. But I do know there's something around that if you're not, even if you live here, but you're a foreigner, you still could go home with all the money and not pay taxes here. But the only person that told me that was Mr. DuPont, and he has somebody in his office that could tell you how to do that. I don't know how.
I see.
But
Yeah,
the right CPA is the one to speak to, and that would probably be an international CPA, not your local CPA, somebody that's got that international background. I don't know. And then there's this other thing you could look it up. It's spelled Google. You might be able to find it there. There's a lot of information there.
All right, thank you.
Google is not fact, okay.
Well, but you could find it as fact if you find a CPA that actually has put a comment there and then double check it.
I would hope that we gain something. I mean, they charge us to go to other countries to invest in their country. We should.
Yeah, I can tell you that you do need to withhold tax on any distributions you do. That came straight from Mauricio Raoul, and I believe it's around 30%. But of course, you know, you'd probably get it back when you file the way that you're supposed to. So there's definitely a tax, and then also if you're a Canadian, because of the USMCA. Previously NAFTA, there's an additional 15% tax on gains made by real estate. So if I patriate whatever I get as far as distributions from the United States, after I'm already good as far as the C Corp is concerned, there's an extra 15% that's not even from Canada that goes to the IRS. So, but that's why I'm using a C Corp instead of an LLC. So it's yucky. That's the answer.
Well, let's get rid of that temporary thing called taxes.
All right. I'm in.
Okay. I thank you all for coming today. It was great to have all of you here, and we will see you next week, same time, same station. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or any of our specialists. We're happy to be here for you. Hope you're enjoying the show. And if we haven't answered your questions or you have any suggestions of who you'd like to appear, please let us know and we will invite. Thank you.